Okay, we are going to talk about the adrenal glands. Now, if we look at this picture here, we can see that the kidneys, and above each kidney, we could see a left adrenal gland and a right adrenal gland. Sometimes they are called suprarenal glands. Supra for above, renal for kidney. So suprarenal or adrenal. Now in this picture, it's clearly showing the outer portion called the adrenal cortex and the inner portion, the adrenal medulla. The adrenal cortex produces those corticosteroids like cortisol, cortisone, corticosterone. They all have the word cort in it, which is a hint that it's coming from the adrenal cortex, right? So again, the adrenal cortex produces cortisol, cortisone, corticosterone. Those are the glucocorticoids, but it also produces mineral corticoids. The mineral corticoid is aldosterone. Aldosterone is involved in sodium retention, okay? The adrenal medulla, the inner portion of it, is involved with adrenaline and noradrenaline. Okay, adrenaline and noradrenaline, or norepinephrine and epinephrine, even dopamine, these are called catecholamines. Catecholamines. Now, if we look histologically at the adrenal cortex, we'll see that there are three regions: the zona glomerulosa, the zona fasciculata, and the zona reticularis. Okay. On the right-hand side, you can see histologically those three different regions. There's the zona glomerulosa, which is pretty superficial. It's close to that adrenal cortex, to the outer portion where the capsule is. Then we see the zona fasciculata, and then we see the zona reticularis. Once you're deep to the zona reticularis, that's where the adrenal medulla is, that secretes the catecholamines called epinephrine, norepinephrine. The zona glomerulosa, all the way on the top, on the right there, that's going to secrete the mineral corticoid called aldosterone. The fasciculata is going to secrete the glucocorticoids, primarily cortisol. And then the zona reticularis is going to secrete the androgens, like testosterone. Okay, so here we have the zona glomerulosa secreting the mineral corticoid. We said aldosterone. Then you have the zona fasciculata secreting the glucocorticoids, affecting glucose metabolism and homeostasis, primarily cortisol. And then we have the zona reticularis secreting the androgens, primarily testosterone. Now what I'd like to show you is a little bit more on the adrenal gland and the what we call the RAS system, the renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system, the RAS system. On the top there, you see how aldosterone is a major mineral corticoid secreted by the adrenal gland. It helps to regulate that sodium-potassium homeostasis. Sodium, potassium are kind of like antagonists to one another. When sodium is going in, potassium is leaving. When potassium is going in, sodium is leaving. They go in opposite directions. A lot of times with high blood pressure, a lot of people think it's from too much sodium, when in fact, most people are quite cognizant and aware of too much sodium causing blood pressure issues, but yet we still see a lot of people with high blood pressure who are on low sodium diets. So what we tend to find, it's more of the ratio or balance of sodium to potassium, and most people have a normal amount of sodium in their diet, but they're just deficient in potassium. So when we find that when people up their potassium levels a bit, their blood pressure goes down, even if sodium stays the same. So just keep that in mind, those getting into healthcare. You'll see a trend where people are so cognizant and aware of sodium and being careful with the amount of salt that they put on things, but yet there are more and more and more people, more than ever, with high blood pressure. So there's something else going on here. So this is a really neat pathway. And what I want you to follow is, in this particular scenario, the person has low blood pressure. And we're trying to get from number 1 and number 2 on the top left and number 3, where there's decrease in blood volume, which decreases the blood pressure, maybe because they're dehydrated, maybe there's a sodium deficiency, or maybe they're losing blood. Whatever the scenario is, their blood pressure is too low. Okay, and we're trying to get all the way back to number 14 and 15 on the right, where the negative feedback loop is going to increase their blood pressure. Okay, so on the left-hand side, you'll see that after number 1, 2, and 3, when your body is recognizing that the blood pressure is dropped, it's the kidneys that are going to detect that information. The kidney has these receptors in it that are going to say, blood pressure is too low. All right, so what are we going to do to try and help the body increase it? The kidneys are going to say, hey, the juxtaglomerular apparatus, or the juxtaglomerular complex of the kidney, is going to secrete renin. You see number 5, it says renin. Now, renin, if you look at the first 3 letters, is renal, R-E-N. So there's a little hint that what organ releases renin? Renal, kidney. So what is that renin going to do? Well, if you look on the left at number 6, you could see the liver. And the liver is releasing something called Angiotensinogen. Now, you've heard me teach many times that anything that ends in -ogen, Angiotensinogen, glycogen, pepsinogen, anything that ends in -ogen is inactive. When you look at the word angiotensin, or angiotensinogen, there's a few words there. We can kind of break it down to understand it. So angio, like when someone has an angiogram or angioplasty, angio refers to blood vessel. And then when you look at tensin, it sounds like tension. So angiotensinogen is going to be released, and it's going to be involved in regulating the tension in the blood vessels, like pressure in the blood vessels. So renin, number 5, is going to knock off the ogen in angiotensinogen, giving us number 7, angiotensin. But it's called angiotensin 1, number 7. Now, if there's an angiotensin 1, it leads us to believe that there's probably going to be an angiotensin 2, number 9, and there is. So how do we go from angiotensin 1, number 7, into angiotensin 2, number 9? Well, that's where the lungs come into play. At number 8, the lungs are going to release an enzyme called ACE. And ACE stands for angiotensin converting enzyme. Aha. So there it is. Angiotensin converting enzyme is going to convert angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2. So the lungs are a major player. Who'd have thunk it, right? Who'd have thought that the kidneys and the liver and the lungs are involved in blood pressure? So perhaps all these people that have blood pressure dysregulation issues, could it be that they have a kidney issue? Could be. Could it mean they have a liver issue? Very possible. Could it mean they have a lung issue? Definitely. And the heart is just the organ that's paying the price for it all, right? It's the last symptom that pops up. So this is a very comprehensive, holistic perspective of looking at physiology. Okay. ACE, or angiotensin converting enzyme, is zinc dependent. You need zinc in order for the lungs to function, especially for ACE. Isn't this something we've heard quite a bit, especially with COVID? How important zinc is, not just for the immune system function, but for lung function. Okay, zinc is really, really important mineral. I have many patients that require zinc because when I test them, I'm going to say more than 90% of the people I took care of are zinc deficient. They didn't even know it. And isn't it interesting that when you're zinc deficient, you lose your sense of smell? Common. even before COVID. It's just a nutritional fact that when people lose their sense of taste and smell, it's usually zinc that's at play. And when they increase their zinc levels, sense of smell and taste come back. All right, so we're just helping you make some connections here. All right, now the body has angiotensin II, number 9. Now, angiotensin II is involved in regulating blood pressure and increasing blood pressure, but how? How is angiotensin II going to increase blood pressure? Well, one of the things it does, it goes to number 15, it's going to constrict your blood vessels. So if you constrict an artery, blood pressure goes up. All right, the second thing it's going to do is angiotensin II is going to stimulate the adrenal cortex. When you stimulate the cortex, that's where the mineral corticoid called aldosterone exists or is released. Aldosterone is going to increase sodium reabsorption. If you hold on to sodium, remember I said earlier, when you hold on to minerals, you hold on to water. When you hold on to water, you hold on to minerals. If you lose water, you lose minerals. If you lose minerals, you lose water. So wherever water is, minerals are going to follow. So aldosterone is going to hold on to sodium. And if you hold on to sodium, you hold it on to water. If you hold on to sodium and water, you're going to increase your blood volume, number 13. If you increase your blood volume, you're going to increase your blood pressure. Voila. Okay? Now, we're going to come back. When I come back, we will talk in the next video about stress and how does stress kill.